Oh, sorry, I'll ask Alan to present the report first. I do apologise.
Thank you, Chair. Just a few things to point out in relation to the report. Hopefully it's self-explanatory. I just wanted to highlight some positive aspects and also an area of improvement. In terms of positive aspects, the business rate collection is 0.12% above the anticipated profile of 57% at this time of year. The percentage of council-owned commercial property that is occupied has increased month on month during that second quarter, currently 94%. And the strategic risk register assessment shows that 82% of net risks are satisfactorily managed, and the benchmark for good practice is 80%. So it's 2 points above that good practice benchmark. In relation to areas of improvement, absence management, the sickness levels are currently profiled at 7.07 days per full-time equivalent, and we're working with occupational health to bring those long-term people with a long-term injury or ailment back to work as soon as possible. So we're looking at every way feasible to work with occupational health and those individuals that have a long-term absence. And they were the points I wanted to raise, Chair.
Thank you. Mrs. Kondaka first, please.
Thank you. Yeah, there were just a few points I wanted to sort of pick out from having looked at the reports that are. Some of the trends which are marked as positive, really looking at it as a member of the public, I don't find particularly positive at all. For example, the Sunbury debt collection, yes, it might be going up minusculely, but there is no significant improvement. Each of those figures is roughly 5% below what you would wanted it to be and things. So trying to put that as a positive trend, I think, is really spinning it rather. Similarly, on the business rate collection, again, it's marked as a positive trend, but in reality, I can't see any significant improvement. I mean, point something of a percentage is irrelevant virtually on the amounts we're talking about. On the CCTV thing, it mentions the number of incidents captured that lead to or assist in police arrest. And all we've got are numbers which are absolutely meaningless. There's no comparison with previous years or other areas. I have no idea whether that's good, those figures are good or bad. So we need something to be able to compare these things with. On the page 21, on people and service delivery, that standards of grounds maintenance work. Again, it's marked as a positive trend. Well, looking at those figures, I hardly call that particularly positive. 57%, 58%, 59%. And the good performance is only considered between 65 and 75%. Good performance, surely, and something like that, where is actually 100%, because it is actually achievable, thing. And it seems to me very, very strange to have a sort of such a wide band of that you're aiming for. Either it's 65% you're aiming for, or it's 75%. To have such a band seems very, very odd to me. On page 22, on the complaints, the second sort of column, number of completed or acknowledged in 10 days, that seems to me that it's wrong that those are all lumped together, because acknowledging a complaint is completely different to completing it. And when I was at work, we had to acknowledge complaints immediately. That is not saying that the complaint is upheld, but just acknowledging that someone has made a complaint, and we had to immediately acknowledge that we've received your complaint, and we will look into it and see whether it's justified or whatever and things. Lumping all these together doesn't really show anything, and the fact, I mean, in my mind, all of them should be acknowledged in 10 days, and then only a certain number then completed.
Thank you, Mrs. Kondaka. Any questions, Mrs. Kondaka? No, thank you very much. Councillor Kondaka.
Thank you, Chair. I find it remarkable that we have such a positive spin on what is an appalling performance from this council. Grounds maintenance is appalling. Yeah, it's one of the biggest areas of complaint to councillors, and we've got an item on it to roll it on later. Absolutely appalling. Virtually every service this council provides is in a dreadful state. We've had massive complaints about the recycling service, and there's virtually nothing in this report to actually look at the areas in which this council is failing. Parking, we've lost maybe 10% of people using our car parks. Businesses going bust all the time. Working age population falling, and the only mention of our problems is on page 24, where we actually mention some of the not satisfactorily managed risks. Planning by appeal. This council is doing an appalling job at planning. It has thousands of houses that have been approved, many of which are being built, and it continuously says we haven't got a 5-year land supply. Have a look down the Wenton Road. This council is dishonestly saying that houses won't be built within 5 years. Affordable housing. This council's in a dreadful state of affordable housing built, and schemes like the Camp Hill Regeneration are having to abandon their affordable housing elements because of the planning mess. And impact of economic downturn, risk 38. It's absolutely appalling the state of this town, and saying we've got conference centres and everything working brilliantly at the combined authority is not helping. We need an honest assessment, not saying 82% of things are going well, because actually virtually nothing this council is doing well. The depot move, £2 million disaster. Yeah, everything is just turning to farce. There is nothing that is going well. Civic hall bookings, appalling. Yeah, you can go through the whole of the financial report later, and virtually everything is going into disaster. All the projects are badly managed, massively over budget. Borough plan, 10 years late. There is nothing that you're doing that is going well. Saying 82% of our performance is good is just crazy. Thank you, Chair.
Do we have any questions to Councillor Kondoka? Thank you very much. Any member? No? Well, we've got agenda item 6 before us. With the council, I would thank our officers and members in general for the way that this council has been managed. You have only got to look around the country to find a council that has in fact been able to maintain the vast majority of its services in spite of the cuts imposed upon us, in our case 53%, without affecting large areas of service provision. And we are running into great difficulty in the coming months, as we have been in fact for months. But I'd like to pass on my congratulations, I'm sure of those of the Cabinet, to the officers and all the staff of this authority for the hard work they've done in maintaining our services to such a high standard. We are not perfect. Clearly others may well be, but we are not. But we do as best as we can with the limited resources available to us. We agreed then with the recommendations? Thank you very much. Seven, the General Fund and Housing Revenue Account Quarterly Budget Monitoring Report. This updates Cabinet on the forecast outturn for both the General Fund and HRA as at the end of September 2016. Section 4 gives a summary of the overall forecast outturn as at the 30th of September. The General Fund is currently forecasting a contribution from reserves of £14,000 a year at year end, representing an adverse variance of £37,000, with further details shown at Appendix A. It's hoped that through close budget monitoring throughout the remainder of the year, further savings or an improvement in income streams will help to reduce this variance by year end. The HRA is currently forecasting a £372,000 increased surplus variance, and further details are shown at Appendix B. Section 5 discusses the main spend pressures which are emerging for the year to the General Fund, particularly in refuse and recycling services, largely due to sickness levels and vacancies within the section. However, returns from investment income are also anticipated to be lower than budget based on the latest Treasury forecasts, creating a significant spend pressure for the general fund. Section 6 considers the performance of key income budgets, which is showing a mixed picture with some performing very strongly, including planning and building control fees and private show hire at the Civic Hall. Section 7 refers to savings that are emerging during the course of the year, perhaps most noticeably through vacancies, with a number of posts currently being recruited to in various sections throughout the council. And Section 8 highlights the revisions required to the capital programme for the new depot site and the use of the capital receipt arising from the sale of the council house. The revised capital programme is shown at Appendix C, and the recommendations are then shown in Section 2. We have 3 speakers on this. Mr Baxter, Mrs Kondalker, Councillor Kondalker, so I'll ask Mr Baxter first.
I only had a quick look through this. Looking at section 8.2 on page 36, you can see that there's an intent to use the money from the sale of the council house to buy a block of investment properties to put onto the rental market. And the rate of return, 6 to 8%, is suggestive of a full market value rent on those properties, which seems to fit the business model of NAB sale. Although nowhere in this brief report here have I seen that the council intends to transfer that money to what is essentially a private limited company away from the council. And I think if that money is being transferred to NAB sale to buy houses, it should be made absolutely clear in this report here that this is the case. Because that's very different to taking that money and using it to build, say, another 10 council houses, which would provide something approaching more of an affordable rent for people that live locally than houses on the market at a full commercial rent in the private rented sector. So that's all I have to say on that. Could we get some clarity on this particular point here so we know what that money is going towards, who's using it and at what part of the rental sector those houses will sit? Because as you well know, that there is a shortage of affordable property in this borough. And it would be nice to see that money from the sale of the council house, which is a town asset, be used to try and prop up the affordable end of the market.
Thank you, Mr Baxter. Any questions to Mr Baxter? Thank you. Mrs Kondalker.
Thank you. Well, most of the bits I want to mention are at 6.1 in this table here. And these variances, it really is very worrying. And I know I've said it before, but I will repeat myself. Market store rental income, 40,000 down. Car park metered income, £227,000 down. These are massive amounts and really are affecting the town. And there is one little line here saying car park metered and season ticket income received to date is not performing well and is showing an adverse variance of approximately £230,000. Now, there's nothing about what you're going to do about that. And this, every time we see any forecast figures, the amount of variance is getting bigger and bigger. We need to see a plan as to what you're going to do about it. In terms of recycling credits income dropping particularly, we need to have a much more holistic, vision on this and things. Increased contamination in bins. It's no good just giving people a little leaflet and say, oh, you can't put that in there anymore and things. People don't understand the whole thing. You need to learn a lot more about psychology and human behaviour and things. Just telling someone, oh, we can't put it in there anymore, without explaining exactly why. They think that we've got a new collecting people and things. And, I know a fair bit about it and things, and I can try and explain to people, and they do understand if you explain, but just telling people, oh, don't do that, or whatever, and things, doesn't actually get the message through, and it actually just makes things worse. Other things that are showing a lot of variance in a negative way. One of the things, catering and bar income at the Civic Hall. When is this going to be let out to someone actually running it as a business? I mean, yes, it is nice these things can remain in-house, but it's not working. The museum cafe was put out to tender and things and seems to be working okay. Why can't that be done at the Civic Hall and we get rid of this massive loss that keeps occurring? Planning fee income massively up, but you can't rely on, that's probably a one-off being so high, because very soon there will be no land left in this borough on which we could build and for people to actually apply for planning permission. So there needs to be a much more holistic thing. Cemeteries income going down. People will only pay so much, and if you keep putting up the fees and the different bits and things, they just turn around and say, I'm not going to do it. That's exactly what's happened with the car parking. People say, I'm not paying that amount. End of things. So you need to understand how people behave and things, and have that much more reflected in the ways you're trying to gain income.
Thank you. Any questions from Mrs. Cantor? No, thank you very much. Councillor Kondaka.
Thank you, Chair. The last 2 weeks I've been visiting the sheltered housing complexes in Wellington. Wonderful people there, very upset at the proposed cuts to the service. And it's more shocking when you actually look in these reports that the housing account is going to make a £3 million surplus this year. £3 million surplus. And if we look in these accounts, in Appendix B on page 39, we see the accounts of the housing service. £26.2 million income, £22.6 million or £22.3 million expenditure. We have a service here that is making a surplus. That surplus will reduce, I know, because the government's done various things and the county council's done various things. But we can afford to do a better job of looking after our old people than cutting over £1 million from our sheltered housing. The cuts proposed to sheltered housing go greatly in excess of the reduction in funding, and yet they are being sacrificed for other areas of the housing budget. We'll have a paper later on the Treasury management. Some of our issues are with obviously our minimum balances. It is not about profit and loss, it's about how much you've got in the bank account. And our capital expenditure is out of control. If you look at table 8.3, we're going to spend £9.7 million this year on capital. We're now going to spend £12.1 million on capital projects. This council is doing an appalling job to actually manage its capital projects and control its spending. We have the overspend of £1.4 million on Gresham Road. We are buying investment properties before we've even received the receipt from the council house sale. Absolutely lunacy. We started spending money we haven't yet got. And then we've got this Bedworth Cricket Club overspend. £400,000 on a project that was supposed to be a £100,000 project. There is no scrutiny and spending is out of control. And capital spending is not free money. It leads to increased debt. And increased debt then reduces your ability to fund services. This council is pushing these things through with special urgency, directors, chief executive, managing director, urgent decisions. We're not doing a robust job of scrutinising this expenditure. And yet, the £2 million on Gresham Road fit out. We could actually have reviewed that if it was done in time and spend less, descale the project, maybe not have a space to park the climbing wall. But yet, this council is doing a dreadful job. These accounts, the officers are really good at recording what we spend. Absolutely no queries with the officers recording what we spend. The problem is the decisions we're taking to spend money poorly. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions to Councillor Condon? No, thank you very much. So we're on General Fund and and Housing Revenue Account Quarterly Budget Monitoring Report. Item 7, do we have any Cabinet comments or any officers wish to comment? Councillor Lloyd.
Chair, at the end of the day, it's very difficult times, as you said, 53% of our budget has gone, and we have to look after the pennies wherever we can. Like you said before, we're not perfect, no individual is perfect. But to be preached to about the sheltered complexes again by a county councillor, County Councillor Condaka, he speaks of decisions taken poorly. Better job. Dishonest. Sacrifice. Appalling job. Pushing things through. Maybe you should have thought about that Tory budget. At the end of the day, all these things, at the end of the day, he should be actually taking a lesson from it. And maybe explaining to the people of the complexes in his area that he so rightly keeps shouting about. Why on earth didn't he vote for the Labour budget that put the money in to save these complexes? So, all these words that he uses, decisions taken poorly, yes, Councillor Condacor, you did. A better job? Yes, you could have done a better job. Dishonest? Well, I'll leave that one to you. Sacrifice? Well, yeah, you did sacrifice the old people's complexes. Apology for the job? Well, hopefully we'll get an apology for you for those people in those complexes. Pushing things through? Should have voted for the Labour budget and not push through the Tory budget. Dreadful.
Excuse me, I didn't vote for the Tory budget. Can you please be honest?
Councillor, he didn't interrupt you.
Asking a question.
At the end of the day, Chair, you can't have pie and eat it. You're either sticking up for the residents in your ward, or you're not. In my eyes, you didn't. It went through. The Tory budget went through. You did not vote for the Labour budget. You did not put the money into the budget. Simple as that. So stop harking on and be truthful with those people in your ward.
And you be truthful, please.
Can we stop shouting from the back, please?
Not, I can't
Can
keep
we
stop.
please stop shouting?
Can we have some honesty,
I will
please?
end this meeting if you do not stop shouting from the back. This is not the first time, Mrs. Condaka.
I know it's not the first
Well,
time.
then please refrain from doing it. Nobody interrupted you, nor do they at any other occasion interrupt you.
We do not have a debate, so therefore I
Mrs.
can never
Condaka,
reply.
We sit here and are insulted at every single meeting. We do not interrupt you, and I would ask you not to interrupt other people. Do we have any other member of the Cabinet wishes to speak? Well, first of all, I'd like to say this is about the General Fund and Housing Revenue Account Quarterly Budget Monitoring. First of all, that's what it's about on this agenda. And I would ask the Finance Director as to whether all members of the Council have received a copy of the External Auditor's Report for this Council.
Yes, it's also on the website.
It's on the website too, so the public can see it. Because I think, perhaps we can send an email to the councillors to remind them that the External Auditor's Report for this Council, which is extremely good, and is not my view, or the Deputy Leader's view, or the Cabinet's view, or the Managing Director's view, or any officer's view, it is an external, objective view, is they're available for everybody to see. I cannot remember ever this Council having a bad External Auditor's Report. We may not take decisions that are to everybody's liking, but we hopefully always have obeyed the law, and we hopefully always have had a very good financial record. And I think it's probably almost second to none in the country. I think this quarterly update is honest. It brings together everything that we've said, and where we need to look more deeply at what we can do about certain things. You know, we're not an island that stands alone, unweathered by storms that other people are facing. In our case, we've done as much as we can, but there are things in here which are something we're looking to address and to try and make improvements before the year end. But we've got the report before us with suggestions on what the ideas are at the moment, so I would move the report before us. That's agreed. I don't actually answer questions that's not within. If you wish to ask a question, sir, you ask it at full council.
It's a simple question.
It's
you're on
at
the
full
board
council,
of
sir.
And you're the council leader. You should know whether that.
Sir, you can ask a question at full council if you put in that is the constitution, not at cabinet.
It's just a yes or no.
Sir, yes, you can ask a question at full council.
It's not a trick question, you know. It's just a simple query.
Should we just where it is?
Do you not think it's important?
Sir, I'm going to
before
continue
people
with the
agree
cabinet.
that this is a good thing or not?
And I'm sure the cabinet members, well-mannered, proper, in line with the constitution. The constitution states that the members of the public are allowed to ask questions of the cabinet at full council. They're allowed to make a statement about anything on this report at cabinet, but not questions. That is full council. Eight is before us, Treasury Management, mid-year review. The report details the Treasury activity of the Council during the first 6 months of 2016-17 and includes the prudential indicators as at the 30th of September 2016. Section 4 gives an update on the economic position, with the expectation being that bank rate will remain extremely low during the medium term and is not expected to start increasing from the current position of 0.25 until June 2019. However, we cannot rule out the risk that interest rates could be cut further should UK growth dip lower than already expected. The Treasury and prudential indicators for the current year are detailed throughout Section 6, and a summary of those requiring amendment is shown at Appendix A. Section 7 details our investment portfolio and performance for the first 6 months. Performance is ahead of the benchmark, however, forecast investment income for the year is below the budget due to the prolonged period of low interest rates. Section 9 summarises our borrowing position and shows our debt holdings and the maturity profile of that debt. The Cabinet are now asked to recommend the report, including the updated Treasury and prudential indicators, be endorsed for submitting to full council in December, so there will of course be another opportunity to discuss this in December. Councillor Darker, I believe you are a speaker on this.
Thank you, Chair. Treasury management is something that gets far too little attention. Very few people ever attend audit meetings or have any interest in it, but actually Treasury management is one of the absolute key things that keeps this council going. I know Craig does a marvellous job of trying to invest our money at a time when there's really, really low interest rates. And we have a very large amount of debt, some of which carries on for extremely long periods. If you look in the table at 9.3, some of our debt is 40 to 50 year debts. So, yeah, it's a mammoth undertaking, and we're probably still suffering from the Icelandic bank fiasco several years ago. But a couple of things I want to highlight. One is that when we overspend on projects that are poorly managed, it hits our debt profile. Yeah, if you look at 6.5, it talks about the depot and how that has changed our debt profile. And also, we are repaying debt. A lot of our council housing was made and bought decades ago, and we're now repaying the loans on that that the government's forced upon us. And it says at 9.1, we actually repaid £2.5 million of housing revenue account debt. in the last year. And I'll come back to this point about our housing revenue account. It is not loss-making. What it is doing is it's clearing debt. And that is the reason why we've got a crunch in the minimum borrowing requirement in 3 or 4 years' time. As we clear more debt, and in fact debt isn't replaced, we have a cash flow issue. And that is why you're trying to attack the housing, sheltered housing, far more than we need to support your housing revenue minimum balances. If you look at the table on 9.3, we're going to be repaying £8 million of debt over the next 2 to 5 years. That actually means the council will be in a better position. But we do need to realise we need to look after our old people at the same time and not just draw these graphs of doom. Because the graphs of doom are partly down to this massive debt the government forced upon us. Thank you, Chair.
Any questions to Councillor Kondaka? Thank you. Do you have any comments on Treasury and Management report? Again, I'd like to... Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to comment, Chair, if I can, that actually as a result of self-financing, the council did, in terms of its housing stock, take on a huge loan. And it was taken on the basis of certain policies in regard to rent repayment. And overnight, the government has changed the goalposts. We are currently undertaking a consultation in regard to sheltered housing. We are partway through that consultation. We are not attacking sheltered housing, as has been said in this meeting today. We are rather consulting on the best options available to us. We await that. It would be preemptive for us to say anything about that consultation until it is concluded. But rest assured, we will do the best we can for residents throughout the borough. And indeed, it is a combination of a complete cut in supporting people funding from Warwickshire County Council and changes in government policy that has led us to have to consult, sadly, on the proposals that are before our tenants. I just wanted to say that, Chair, because I think it is unfair
a bit of
that there
leeway
has
there.
been an attack on sheltered housing, Chair. But we are protecting ourselves.
Councillor Longdon.
Councillor Jackson just said it, you don't give me leeway as well. But I'll save myself from this.
Right, okay. Yes, I've allowed Councillor Jackson to continue because, of course, you know, things were said that were not part of this report and I felt it necessary. But it is, in terms of Treasury management and stock, you know, we were forced to buy our council houses, which I always thought were ours anyway, but we were forced then to invest and borrow many millions of pounds to buy them, only to find out they're not ours anyway, because they've been stolen back by the government. Simple as that. We build them, we buy them, we find out they're not ours, we have to borrow the money all over again, and then to make them ours, then we're told they're not yours anyway, we're having them. So that really, as far as I can work out, I'm very simple in terms of maths. You know, that's 3 times we bought them. But I would like to pass on congratulations to our finance department again, because in terms of our treasury management, it's been excellent in this authority. And I think, again, if people actually read the auditor's report, who've got qualifications in the matter, they will see that that is backed up. So I'm going to propose the report before us, unless anybody else wants to. No? Thank you very much.